What's up? You all right? Well, I'm Pastor Sam. I'm the pastor of Wimbledon Church, and Heroes was launched in Wimbledon, but it's much bigger than Wimbledon, and it has taken extraordinary proportions. So I'm going to pass you over to Jader, a good friend of mine, who is going to set the scene for what will come next.
In the beginning, God created the universe. And a few thousand years later, he invites Abraham to step out of his tent and look up at the night sky. And that was the biggest screen we knew for thousands of years. And then the cinema came along and the screen got smaller. And then the TV came along and the screen got even smaller. And the smaller the screen got, the more time we spent in front of it. And then smartphones came along, and the screen got even smaller, and we spend even more time in front of it. In fact, there are 1 billion smartphones across the globe. And just in the App Store alone, Apple has 1 million apps, is that right? Something like that? Yeah, I think they've just gone over 1 million, actually. And 100,000 of those apps are actually games. So we're here today to present to you the completion of this circle. We've gone full circle because now we're bringing Abraham to the small screen with Heroes.
So, Heroes is the first Adventist game to hit the Apple Store. And it's about time, right? That guy there with the muscles is Abraham. All right, so proper hero styles that we went for. But where did the idea come from? How did it all start? The General Conference asked me to go to Hong Kong to present something that to me was very close to my heart. It was, what can the Adventist Church learn from Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple? Could we learn anything from him? And from that, I realized that Steve, he started Apple, and then he was kicked out of his own company. You can read about that later. After he was kicked out, he started a couple of companies. One of them was called NextStep. The technology that they developed is still used in iPhones and everywhere today. And another company that you may have heard of called Pixar. When he came back to Apple, Apple was in trouble. In fact, the only reason why he came back is because they were in such trouble. And when he came back, he described it this way. He said, we have 2,500 employees making computers without knowing why they're making computers. Our company does not have identity. Our employees have no identity here. And I'm a pastor, so I said, I can relate to that. Because most of my members, dare I say, come to church every single week without knowing why they're coming to church every single week. And many of them are Adventist on the seventh day, in the morning, after 10:30. So there is no sense of identity, and our young generation that is coming up, this is the key issue. What does it mean to be a Seventh-day Adventist? And then Steve Jobs and Apple said, well, reinstilling identity is easy. You just need to remind people of who their heroes are. And it sunk in. The reason why we have such a crisis in identity is because we have forgotten the stories. We don't know the ins and outs of the stories. If Abraham is not a hero to us, then of course when God says move, we're going to resist. If David is not a hero to us, when the problems that are bigger than our resources come up, we're going to be scared and going to run away. But if David is our hero, when the giants arise in our lives, we can take a few stones from the word and we can face it. If we know the stories, if only we knew the stories. And then Heroes was born in Wimbledon, which was an evangelistic series. And this is how it happened. We simply invited people. Go ahead. By the way, everybody plays games in any tube station that you go to. They're just addicted to that thing. And so we thought if that's where people are, that's where the gospel needs to be, hence a game. Next, please. So this is Jader singing in Wimbledon Church. If you've been to Wimbledon before, that is not what it looked like before, and that's not what it looks like now. These are not projections on the wall. They are not banners that were placed there. We painted the wall to make it very clear to the church that this was a new thing that was taking place. Now, of course, some of the sisters and the older brothers were really vexed about this. Do you know what I mean? Let's kill the pastor. So, but if the pastor is not on it, nothing ever happens, right? So I decided to pull completely into this and allow the younger generations to say, we have a voice, let's express it. And so when we painted this, a sister comes to me and says, Pastor, that does not look like David. To which I responded, thank you, sister. We've been looking for those pictures. Could you bring them next week? Because we actually had no idea what David looked like, but thank you for pointing that out. And we don't realize David was the man, and when he went as a fugitive, he was leading 600 ex-fugitives. It's like the brother entered the jail, and everybody immediately said, don't know who the man was before, but now it's him. So I don't think he was a tiny little man that we picture in the story of Goliath. So that's how it developed. Next, please. And we had the T-shirts, the black T-shirts that were here. The white ones are a limited edition just for camp. And 120-odd people helped every single week. And a revolution started. It was a campaign, an evangelistic campaign, where you had to invite your friends and family and others to come. And the thing is, the reason why we don't invite people that we know to come to church is because we fear losing our street credit when they come. Isn't that right? Or is it just my experience? Because if I am honest, most of my own church services that I am the pastor of, I would not invite my neighbors to come. They don't get the language. They don't understand. And if my British neighbor came in and the sister said you need to be dipped in the blood of Jesus, that to him would be disgusting. And so we changed the language. We need a new Pentecost, by the way, where people from the world can understand what we're actually saying. And this is what Heroes was. We expected about 30 visitors to come during the 7-week periods, and we thought, great. I remember being involved in Impact London, a youth campaign some years ago, and we spent £80,000, and we had about 80, 90 visitors, depending on the point of view. And so we're waiting for 30 visitors in Wimbledon. You know how many turned up after 7 weeks? 135. People were proud enough to bring their friends. Out of those, we had an appeal to study the Bible. 38 people subscribed to the Bible Academy. So the revolution started there. But then the idea came to take a game that Jader has been developing for 18 months and connect it with Heroes. And after a long process of finding out how that would best be, then, for the children, go ahead. Heroes came along. So in the UK, it will be presented to you by the Wimbledon International Church at a cost of nothing. It's going to be a free game on the Apple Store you can download, okay? So you just need an iPhone or an iPod first. And Android. I'll tell you about Android in a minute. So that's what it looks like. You have the play button. You select 7 heroes, your favorite 7 heroes out of the 11. You can select all 11 of them. Next. And then you play the game, which is you answer questions. Let me come around here just to explain how it works. So you answer your questions here. And then at the end, you check out who in church actually knows the Bible. All right? So if your pastor doesn't really know much, challenge him. Say, Pastor, bring it. Let's do this. I know more about Esther than you do. Prove it. And for the first time in the world, we're going to attempt a demo of the game to you today. So that's going to be quite thrilling. The questions are not the final questions that will be. They're just trial questions, but you'll get an idea of the game. Okay? Now leave it on that screen because I'm going to explain it in a minute. So no, we can't leave it on that screen. We come back to this screen. All right. So we're going to go ahead and select some heroes. Esther, Ruth, Daniel, King David, Abraham, Peter, and Mary. Play. So, if it doesn't crash, it didn't, good. You've got 60 seconds to answer as many questions as you possibly can. Now here we have some example questions so we can just proceed and go through. How did Haman try to kill me and my people? Who's this? Esther, good. What was the answer? Incited the king against the Jews. Ta-da! Notice the more you answer correctly, do you see that little number on the left? It keeps going up. That's your multiplier. What did the Philistines do after I killed the giant? They run away. Good. So on the left here, you have the multiplier. Let me pause it just for now because I don't want to, of course, hit the bottom. So this is your multiplier. If it's 4, that question that you're answering is worth 40 points. If it's 5, it's worth 50 points. If it's 6, it's worth... This could be a very long talk. Okay? Now, as you are responding this, you get more time. So if you're responding a question that has 4 seconds, if you respond correctly, when I was childhood and desperate, what was God's promise? I would have a son. Go. I received extra seconds as it goes along. Now, do you see this number 7 at the bottom? So, do you remember the name of the giant I defeated? Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, it wasn't. It was Goliath. There you go. Now I have 9 over here at the bottom left. This is how much mana you collect. See what we did there? Thought you liked it. So this is how much mana you collect. And the more mana you have, the more right questions you answer in a row, the more mana you collect, and you swap mana, you exchange mana for effects. We were going to call them miracles, but we thought people exchanging for miracles, not a good idea, so we call them effects. Okay? So first you have, and now we can go back to here, please, Jay. Okay, so first you have the Joshua effect. Do you remember when Joshua was fighting, but they run out of time, and then there was the sun stopped in the sky, and God gave him as much time as he needed to kill the enemies? The Bible is not a PG film. So the Joshua effect gives you extra time, okay? The Lazarus effect, my favorite, it gives you a second chance. Right? So you ta-da-da-da-da, then ta-da, you get it right, you respond. So if you answer wrong, you don't lose the multiplier, you can keep your multiplier. Next, you have the Jonah effect, where you can skip the question, like he tried to skip the mission. And finally, you have the Jesus effect, which takes away your wrongs. Okay? So you get 3 X's on the wrongs, and you can just go and do the right answer and keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going. So this is how the game works. And then when you finish, you compare this with your friends, your score with your friends from Facebook. So that's version number 1. This will be released in July. Okay? So in a month or so, the game will be available and you can download it. And this is some of the response that we've had so far. In October, because how is this evangelism for the 21st century? Now this is where it gets really, really cool. In October, Mission to the Cities will be in full force. And throughout the months, the summer and by the end of the year, we'll have various events and campaigns in London. One of them will be the Hero series in the Advent Center. Okay? Now, this will be an opportunity for you to invite people that you know, perhaps other Christians or perhaps completely secular people, to come around and play the game and engage with it and listen to the story of these heroes. But here is the amazing thing. We want to publicize this as much as possible so that we will have 10, 20, 50, 100,000 people in London playing. And then when the Hero series comes, everybody gets push notifications directly to their phone. Okay? So they get push notifications. Now, Jader pointed this out. This was hilarious. He goes, I've never liked distributing leaflets. I was always forced to do it, but I always found a way to escape. Whenever the church was about to leave to go door to door, he found something to do and escaped. And he said, but this year, I'm going to send 10,000 leaflets with one button. So that's the 21st century version of it. So tell everybody that you know in school, Facebook, and so on as you play the game, because the more people that get that push notification and see the videos, they'll be able to come and engage with the stories of the various heroes. So that's the evangelism side of things. And of course, they'll be challenged to join the Heroes Academy, which is really a Bible study in view of baptism. So they study the various heroes in the Bible so that they can engage with them, because the Bible is a book of stories. We can take doctrine out of it, yes, but ultimately it's a book of stories. The storytelling element is really the most important. And now I want to pass you over to the youth pastor at Wimbledon, Tabitha. Some of you know her. She's been doing amazing stuff with this, and she's going to talk about storytelling for the next few minutes and challenge you to try it yourself.
Hi, everybody. Oh, no. See, I work primarily with the young people at Wimbledon, and I spent the last few weeks working with the kids. And one of them is over there, which is my child. But does anybody know something about children? They are loud. So when you just said hello, it was lovely. It was beautiful. I saw how much you smiled, and you just look so gorgeous. But actually, no. Let's try again. So, good morning, everybody. So they're a little better, but they're not quite as good as the kids. See, I feel to just get the children to come in and really put them to shame. Who enjoys a good story? Yeah? Anyone enjoy a good story? Who enjoys reading a good book? When you get going and then about halfway through, you're like trying to stop yourself from flicking to the end of the story. And anyone done that? And you want to read like the last line. I'm a last line reader, so I go to the back of the book, read the last line and go, oh man, how? Who? Okay, right. And then I'm reading the book like this. Anyone do that? No? Yeah, oh good, I'm not alone. This is good. I was really worried. How many of you like to watch something engaging? I've recently been watching... And, no one... What? It's a good... I don't know what you guys... I don't know what you're saying. No idea. But who watches a good television show? Yeah? And when the thing is ending and they start the music and you hear you hear the music's going and you just know they're about to leave you with someone half dead, ready to, and you're like, no! A good story, right? Well, the Bible has lots and lots of good stories, and some of them don't end the way you think they end. So I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to ask for a couple of volunteers to help me with my story, because I like volunteers. Is there anyone in the room taller than this man? Sure there are. Come on. Anyone taller? Leon. Okay. Hi. How you doing? Yeah, taller. Excellent, good. And broad-shouldered. That's what I really needed. Somebody big, muscular. Anyone guess what story I'm about to tell? A hero. We should have a T-shirt on you, man. Serious. Anyone want to buy the brother a T-shirt? Come. See me over there. Goliath. It's a big, strapping man, isn't it? Ready. Yeah, you know where this is going. All right, so somebody's going to help me to tell the story. There is who's the smallest person in the room? I could take off my heels and probably beat a few of you, but, there'll be some smaller. Come. Beautiful. I'm loving these bright T-shirts. This is good. This works for me. Hi. Oh. Everyone say, hi, what's your name? Toko. Mm-hmm. Nice to meet you. I'm Tabitha. Come and stand up. And we all had that response. Can you imagine what David was like? That's exactly what people said. David's tending the sheep. David was out there by himself with just the sheep for company. David had to face the lion. Oh, wow, how do you do that? Okay. So when he comes back with these tall tales, David would come back from tending the sheep with these massive stories of how he took on a lion and the lion died And his parents were like, okay, David, come in for some food. It's okay. You've been out in the sun a little too long. It's all right. Come on inside. Anyway, so this was David's life. David would be just, I should call it really Davidina or something, really. It should be just Davita. Okay, Davita would be out in the field, and she would be working really hard, and no one would believe her stories of how she took on the bear and the lion and the wolf, and she conquered. But they would know that none of the sheep went missing, so they were kind of pleased with him. They would know, so they would come out. The parents would check. You know what your parents are like. I've got parents, right? Yes, I've kept all the sheep safe. Okay, yeah, you go inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, he did what he said he did. Excellent, good. But one day, life was slightly different. War broke out. Massive war. This half of the room hates this half of the room. Yeah? All scowl that way. We don't like you. We want you gone. See, this half of the room was like, no way, we don't like you no more. We are going to kill you, and we're going to get our best fighter to do it, because only one man can take all the honor. That's right. I have faith in you. Yeah, safe, good. He can take your best fighter, bring him. And every day for 40 days, what would he do? He would laugh at them. Laugh in their face. Ha, 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 ha. Come, bring your fighter. You won't come? No, you won't come? No, you won't come? No. Next day. You won't come? No. You won't come? No. 40 days. And one day, Davita, thank you, was out in the field, and his mum and dad called, Davita, come. We need you to run an errand. Here's the errand. Take the food down to your brothers and come right back. David was a dreamer. Come right, very clear instructions. Go take the food and come back. So she did. Off she traveled down to take the food. As she got there and she saw the giant. You can't miss it. Can anyone miss the giant? What? No. So miss the giant. Wow. Yes. And she's like, what on earth kind of madness is this? He's laughing at who? She saw her brothers all up like this, hiding. She's like, what is this stupidness? Don't be silly. And she was like, no, I don't like this. This can't be right. So she goes in and she's like, right, so this is what's going to happen. We are going to send our best fighter out. And the king's like, sure, I am the best fighter. Okay, then. So we're going to go out, and this is what we're going to do. We are going to take them. So the king decides he's going to put all his heavy armor onto here, put on this. Poor Davita, you can't see her for the armor. The armor's covering her. She's gone. That's it. It's all over. And she's like, okay, this is not going to work. Here, have all of this back. I'm going down to the stream. I'm going to pick up 5 stones. Some of you are so confused now. 5 stones. And I'm going to go down. I'm going to face the giant. Face the giant. That's right. And the giant is going to laugh in my face. And is going to say, come, I'm going to feed you to the crows. Oh dear. I told you need to read your stories. Feed you to the crows. And I'm...
Question for the game.
Yeah, so we're now knowing how to fool you. We're going to feed you to the crows, and guess what? You ain't going to do nothing. And so Davita was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Here, come, meet my stone. Crack! And the giant dropped. The wrong direction. The wrong direction. The giant fell flat on his face. Aha! And so Davita runs across and she's like, I won! Runs across, grabs the sword that's bigger than her, chops off the giant's head, sticks it on the sword and runs around with the head on the sword for 3 days. Yo, watch me though. Now tell me, who's the king? Davita is the king. No doubt. Welcome to the world of storytelling. Thank you very much.
When you know the details and you can relate to the character, then their story becomes your story. So here's the thing, choose your heroes wisely. As a pastor and now a father, I am worried for the generations to come. Because the new heroes that are coming out, they are weird. When we have, because we've always had celebrities. That's nothing new. We just seem to worship them now, but it's nothing new. We've always had celebrities. But the kind that is coming out now, what they stand for or the lack of, it worries me. It worries me that my two sons are going to meet a whole generation of women who believe themselves they're objects. Men have always thought that women were objects. But for the first time, because women like Rihanna, who had incredible influence, are now singing about how she's happy to be an object, girls are watching that, listening to that, engaging with that, and without realizing are being transformed by that. We need new heroes. Heroes for today, heroes that you can relate to and yet allow yourself to be transformed by them. She was beautiful. When she saw the eunuch coming towards her, she felt a chill down her spine. Eunuchs, you would know, are people that worked for the king and had their manhood chopped off. But this eunuch was more than a man as he approached her. She knew that this one was a powerful one. And he came and inspected her from top to bottom. Could she be the new wife of King Xerxes? King Xerxes had already gotten rid of his first wife. He did not kill her, though he could have. He simply forbid her to come into his presence. King Xerxes, and if you watch 300, King Xerxes was waiting for a wife. This one was beautiful. Esther, or Hadassah as others would call her, was standing there as a eunuch inspected and found her to be more beautiful than the others. But she wasn't ready for the king. A peasant girl perhaps had to go into the harem, be trained and go through treatments of beauty that would last 12 months. And if you look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm not bad, you can relate to this one. She was beautiful. And she was about to marry the most powerful man on earth. She had to have two things. She had to be a very good woman. Read between the lines. The second thing is that she needed to know how to treat a man in power. But she had no idea that this moment for her was not about her, but what about she was about to do. The book of Esther, you see, it's a complicated book to be in the Bible, for the word God is not in it. Nowhere in the book is Jehovah or Elohim or any of the other names appropriated to God are mentioned. If it was today, this would be a secular book. But for God, there is no such thing as secular or gospel or secular or Christian. For God, a book is a book, and this one was talking about what he used to do and what he does. And so in this book, she comes to a point where she needs to choose between her own safety and an entire nation. What would she do if she spoke, if she entered the presence of the king and tried to defend the Jewish people who the king condemned to death in the worst genocide that they could imagine? If she entered the presence of the king without having been invited, the king had the right by law to kill her. And so she has this dilemma, and she says, I don't want to go. I'm not going to go. What if I die? And in the end, she decides deep within herself that she needs to let go of selfishness and put herself in danger for the benefit of others. She steps up to the plate and says, for if I perish, I perish. This sentence has been ringing across generations. She stood in the presence of the king and said, King, I want to offer you a banquet, because wise women know that you don't talk to a man who's hungry. At the end of the first banquet, the king is happy, and she says, tomorrow I will tell you what I need. And after a second banquet, she says, why do you want to kill the Jews? And the king says, and eventually changes the decree. And everyone knows that the decrees of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed. She changes the course of history. But it comes from this sentence, if I perish, I perish. Picture with me, thousands of years later, this businesswoman who wakes up very sad, and her husband comes to her and says, why are you sad? She responds, I'm not sad, I'm angry and worried. Why? Because my boss is coming down today. The president himself? Yes, of the company. And he's going to fire everybody from this factory. And the factory is good, there is no need for it, it just doesn't like it. 200 people will be fired? Yes, 200 families that depend on this, and I'm angry. And the husband says, somebody should say something. But the last people who spoke were fired. She goes to the tube, and on her way there, she takes her mobile and reads the story of Esther. And when she comes to the boardroom, oh, the boardroom. The boss says, we're going to close down this factory. By then, she remembers Esther, and the sentence comes to her mind. What sentence? If I perish, I perish. A hero is dead if only on the pages, but she brings the hero to life as she stands and protests the closure of the factory. I don't know how the story ends, for this is a made-up story, but you have stories of your own. For we enter buses that are populated with teenagers who don't know who they are and decide to prowl on others, such as old ladies and other people, which is not right. Social justice needs a whole new generation of people. You see, I'm an immigrant to the UK. Maybe you are too. Maybe your family is too. And it's easy to just wash your hands and say, let them take care of it. It's nothing to do with me. Social justice has got to do with all of us. But if I perish, I perish. The story of Esther is as real today as it was then. And we can take every single one of these heroes and make sure that we understand what made them them and what can make us today us. Abraham, David, Esther, Jesus, Peter, Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of Jesus, Paul, and Ruth in the end. We had no idea what they looked like, so great artists have been putting all of these together. And we hope that through these, we can inspire a whole new generation to meet the ultimate hero, Jesus. So, let's go back. The youth department, Pastor Steve Thomas and his wife came down to Wimbledon. They saw it, they loved it. And so, together with Mission to the Cities, Heroes will be coming this year, as I mentioned before. Please get the word out and play yourself. And if you have any suggestions, please get in touch with us. We want to reach 10,000 push notifications to 10,000 devices this year, just in London. I went to Romania a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it was last week. And they want to make Heroes their main evangelistic drive for the next few years. Next week, I'm going to Brazil. Most of you know, or some of you know, I'm from Brazil. Woohoo! It's great, right? Now, usually, when it comes to evangelism, Brazil is always at the cutting edge. We keep hearing this. Oh, they're coming up with this, and they're coming up with that, and look how much they're growing, and what have you. In 1 week, in fact, this Friday coming now, they are meeting to have an event calling all of their developers and communication people in the whole of the division to talk about producing games For them, the future of evangelistic engagement with a new generation is games. And this is something new to them. So they thought, we're going to change the world and we're going to do this. And then they checked, and London is first. For the first time in ages. For the first time in ages. It's actually Europe in something that is leading the way in doing this. So Brazilians, they don't like competing with people. So they said, you guys want to come and teach us what you've learned in this journey? So it will be, I'm going there this week to present Heroes there and to see how they can use it and what will happen in the future there. So, okay, couple of things. Version 1 won't have this, but we're hoping that version 2 will. So a sneak peek into the next version, that you can actually challenge people. So you say, I want to play with you, and I choose 3 heroes, and then you choose 3 heroes, and you have a heads-on competition. Although that word is, I didn't say that. Competition is bad. Give me another word. A challenge. I'm going to challenge you, okay? Semantics is everything. So I'm going to challenge you. And then you have that little thing. Then we want to have teams in churches. So you set up a team and you belong to a church, and then you have competitions within churches, and then you have between churches. And we're going to open this up, obviously, not just to the Adventist church, so we really will know who the people of the book are. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? So start playing. We need you to win this. Okay? Because it will be very embarrassing otherwise. And then later we want to introduce not only heroes, but also villains. Oh. So villains also. And of course, there are many other things that we want to introduce as the time passes, including mini-heroes, Bible stories for children, and all the material that will come from it. So that's it. We have 5 minutes for a couple of questions. Are there any questions? Yes. Okay, good. Push notification is when you download an app, then you subscribe to the push notification, like a text message that goes to your phone. Okay, that's push notification. But a couple of things about that. What can you do today? You can go to facebook.com, Heroes the Game, facebook.com/Heroes the Game, and you just like it. All the news will come from there. If you're not on Facebook, what? So facebook.com/Heroes the Game. Now today, or this week, we have a stand. If you go through here in the pub to the left, we have a stand. Jada that you saw, he's actually editing the live code of the final versions right there. So if you know anything about development, go and ask him, talk to him. He's got the live code there, he can talk. All right, so also t-shirts, you can buy the t-shirts there, and water bottles, and iPhone covers, and all sorts of different things we have there. What else? The what? Android. How many of you have Android? All right. And how many of you have iPhones or iPods or Apple devices? It's kind of half-half. So, here's the thing. Next year. Next year. Unless there is someone here who God has blessed, who can actually hire loads of developers, and then it can be done this year. But otherwise, yeah, next year Android is coming. Romania wants to do it themselves because most people there have Android phones instead. So they want to hire the developers to do it there. So we're studying different possibilities. But yeah, if you give an offering towards it, this would go a long way in getting the Android version, right? Oh, you don't want it that much now. That's all right. Other questions here? A video game, like a proper Xbox stuff. Yeah? Okay, you can. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so, wow. An action game, in effect. Wow, look at this. I don't know if it's on purpose, but I've got an echo. Okay. No, it's gone. Thanks for that. So, I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and this friend told me, Sam, I have another friend who's become a millionaire doing games, just games. And he's gone absolutely global, and people love games. He's been working since Atari. And I was telling him that it would be great to have a Bible game, you know, that you could play and so on. Now, of course, some of the older people would flip by this, but if you're actually true to the Bible, this will be an 18 game. Just want to point that out. If you want to be true to the Bible, David chops the head off and walks with it for 3 days. Okay? Now, no, don't even go there. I'm not even going to mention that. Leave that. So there are battles and wars and all of this. So there's a lot of potential for that. Now, this friend of mine really wanted to make this happen. And he said, Sam, what would it take to make this happen? My friend told me it would take between 2 and 3 million pounds. Is that right? I said, yeah, that's about right. That's what it would take. Do you know who that friend was? The treasurer of the South England Conference, Earl Ramhoraxen. I think it's great that our leadership have incredible potential and vision. However, the church does not have that kind of money. And so what we need is for you guys to get really, really good jobs to be able to sponsor this, because that level of engagement will be amazing. And this is important. We're not releasing this as a Christian game or an Adventist game. This is a game. Because as soon as you put, it's a gospel game, then immediately the world doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So imagine that a company or a group of people was releasing a game on the gods of the Olympus, you know, the Greek gods with the mythology. And you had to answer questions about the mythology. Same sort of thing. You can play it even if you don't believe that God had anything to do with that. So that's it. So in other words, about 9 years, 10 years, but that's the overall vision. Anyone else? Yeah, if you search on Facebook, because there's so many things on Heroes already, you won't find it. You have to go facebook.com/what? Heroes the Game. That's it. And if you can't spell heroes, then